Part 7 of our study guide. We're coming up on, oh yeah, scarification, rites of passage, going from one status to another status, and along the way, having a marking of that through a tattoo or a scar um, is pretty common. Very often these are gendered. Women tend to get tattoos sometimes, facial tattoos, um, depending on where you are. And other forms of body modification that can be quite limiting. Um, Muckle Chapter 12 in politics, no political organization, power, um, coercive power, right? That is the state. The state has persuasive power that all other societies have, um, bands, tribes, and chiefdoms. Authority is what is given. Hold on, let me get this right, because Muckle does it a little bit different, and I don't want to depart from Muckle unless I know it, um, unless I know what I'm doing. Let's see. We had authority is the use of legitimized power, and prestige, the social reward involving positive reputation or high regard that can only be given to a person by others. Move this back over again. Let's see. The big man, of course, this is in tribal societies, especially in Papua New Guinea or other sort of um, horticultural societies. Sort of a shifting, not very formal designation, who uses a lot of persuasive power to influence people's decisions. Internalized controls like shame versus guilt. These are ways that we control our own actions. Shame is connected. Let me get this right again. I don't typically use these, but don't want to depart here. Shame culture is conformity to social norms from wanting to live up to others' expectations. Guilt culture is conformity to one's own sense of right and wrong, where the punishment is supernatural. Let's see. External. So that's internalized. Externalized controls involve sanctions, such as fines or taxation or capital punishment or whatever. Decentralized versus centralized. Again, remember what we were talking about here. Uncentralized systems with no central governing body. These are bands and tribes. Centralized systems, chiefdoms and states. That's pretty straightforward. Cultural materialism is our approach here. How we like to analyze cultures is through following the money. Emil Durkheim is our guy with mechanical and organic solidarity. This is important. So mechanical solidarity, remember, has to do with small-scale societies, rural societies, and how easily they break up because labor is not specialized, and pretty much anyone can do it. And so things break apart like machines do. They break apart with interchangeable parts very easily. Organic solidarity is the opposite of that. Organic solidarity are like organs in the body, where if the heart is ripped out of the body, then the body dies and the heart dies too. So this is like modern society, industrial society, urban society, where everyone is tightly packed in together, and people have high degrees of labor specialization, and you can't just go off and do your own thing. You're tied to other people very, very closely. That's organic solidarity. Bands, tribes, sodalities, chiefdoms. Sodalities has to do with these groupings that extend across the boundaries of clans or villages or even tribes sometimes. Chiefdoms, um, contact transformation. Societies transform from bands to tribes, from tribes to chiefdoms, from chiefdoms to states, on the basis of contact with another group that's more organized, more consolidated, often more threatening, especially if it's a state with army or some sort of settlers and that sort of thing, the bands and tribes living around there quickly pretend to be more organized than they are as a defensive posture at first, but then it eventually ends up transforming the society. States, this is the top level, of course, with social stratification. Um, Lots of different social classes, social mobility, you can move up and down them. Class has to do with this economic status that's achieved. Achieved status means you can fail at it. Caste is the opposite of class. It's an ascribed status. It means you're born into it. You can't get out of it. Gendered status in some way is something like an ascribed status, although perhaps that is a little more flexible. Gender stratification has to do with many societies, especially agricultural societies, that introduce inequality between men and women. Gender inequality and economic productivity. Gender discrimination involves, official laws or restrictions on what women can do and can't do. Um, Environmental inequality, water inequality, water and food production, water privatization, ethnic politics. Let's see. Oh, achieved versus ascribed. Achieved versus ascribed. Yeah, that's important. So, achieved status that you can fail at. That's like being a parent. Some people don't have kids and then they're never parents. Um, Ascribed status is being a child. You're always a child of someone, even if they weren't very good at it. They're still your parent because biologically there's no other way to come around. Um, okay. So, population transfer, legal protection. Oh, right. Here we go. Ethnic politics. Whatever the definitions were. Environmental inequality, had access to water, conflict. Wait a second. Uh, yeah, I think we'll just get rid of that. I don't think that was in there. Uh, let's see. Violence, uh, raids, feuds. Um, Raids had to do with short-term incursions for a specific goal. A feud could be a long-term battle between two factions. Um, Warfare is just violent acts. Uh, let's see. Large-scale violence involving the whole country against another, or parts of the country against other parts. That's a civil war. Um, Conquest, purchase, terra nullius. So this had to do with how we conquer um, and take the land of Native Americans. How the United States did this. How Australia or Canada did this as well. That basically, because we are a country of laws, we have to have a signed consent from the people who previously owned it, handing it over. But that implies, this is important, that implies that the people have the concept of land ownership, or they have the concept of social organization, such that there's a leadership, a state, or maybe at least a chief who can say, I speak on behalf of the people. If they're bands and tribes, they don't have chiefs and they don't have private property ownership. Nobody is going to stick their neck out and say, yes, I own this land and I will sell it to you and sign my name on the deed. Yes, I am the chief and I, on behalf of my people, concede and give you the land. So if you don't have that, then there's no way you can legally get title to the land. The only way to do it then is to declare terra nullius and say that it's empty land and the people who live there are like rabbits or deer. They don't own land. They're like animals, which is horrible and dehumanizing. But then all they have to do is do a DNA test to prove they're human, and then that terra nullius declaration is null and void. And so in some of the places where the conquest came a lot later, for example, in Canada and Australia, they did that. They declared terra nullius because people didn't have time. In the United States, they had hundreds of years to develop themselves, the Native Americans, into chiefdoms and states so that they could be conquered and bought. But where they didn't have that time, then they just declared terra nullius, and now all that's null and void. You have no basis, legal basis for taking our land because we are in fact human. Okay, that was important. And then cannibalism is usually ritualized, so people eating one another. It's ritualized or motivated. Um, ritualized means it's part of a formal ritual where ceremonially eat some portion of some person you loved or you fought against and killed. It's motivated. You're hungry. You're starving. You do this horrible thing just to stay alive. Um, there's no society where people harvest human beings and eat them for the protein. Endocannibalism, eating your own, eating your grandparents or whatever. Exocannibalism, eating the outsiders, eating your enemy that you just defeated. In the United States, we had the exocannibalism of mummia. That was somewhat ritualized. It was a medical supplement sold in pharmacies and through the mail that was ground up mummies from Egypt. Um, is violence programmed? What does programmed mean in this context? Are we programmed to be violent by our genes? No, we are programmed by our society to be violent because, of course, um, this violence being justified, uh, uh, um, the violent act, the fact that a violent act has been justified tells you that it was a state society because non-state societies don't tend to be able to do that. Okay, and so thus, since state societies are just a different level of political organization, violence is not programmed by our genes; it's programmed by our societies. Okay, good luck on the exam. I'll get it up there by the end of the week. I'll try to get it up there by Saturday for sure. And it's opening on Monday morning and closing Thursday at midnight.